You're listening to the Microsoft Innovation Podcast, where we explore the intersection of people, business, and technology. This year, we're adding a new show to our lineup, The AI Advantage, to help you learn the skills you need to thrive in the AI era.
Welcome to the Copilot Show, where I interview Microsoft staff innovating with AI. I hope you will find this podcast educational and inspire you to do more with this great technology. Now, let's get on with the show. Today's guest is from Nashville, Tennessee in the US. He works at Microsoft as a principal program manager for Copilot Studio and conversational AI. He helps people leverage Copilot Studio to build amazing copilots. You can find links to his bio and socials in the show note for this episode. He was last on the show for episode 497, and we talked about Power Virtual Agents. So that was a wee while ago. But welcome back, Dewain.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here, Mark. It's awesome to get to talk to you again. We just were kind of talking before that it's been so long, and I didn't even believe it was. It's hard for me to believe it's even been that long. It just seems like yesterday you and I were chatting about this.
Things are changing so rapidly. If you look at, we're recording this at the start of 2025. I feel we've come off an epic year where corporations are really starting to go, what does AI look for us? And then the last 3 months, I feel there was heavy marketing, not just from Microsoft, but all the major players in the world in the generative AI space, LLMs, etc., around that 2025 is going to be the year of agents. So with that backdrop before us, when you look at this year ahead, what excites you right now the most?
I think the thing that is going to be very interesting in the Copilot Studio world, right, is I would say that there's this perception of AI and what it can do, and then there's the reality of what it could do and how easy it is to do that with that AI back last year, right? You could really build some really cool stuff, and I think what's happening is the commoditization, the roughing of the edges that were a little bit in there. And so I think that in itself, for what I would call like a synchronous or a, kind of like a synchronous copilot where you talk to it and it talks back to you, is going to be one of the things that is going to be the major innovation. It's not like, oh, we're going to see something that we never thought of. It's just going to be the things that you are wanting to do will become very easy and commoditized, and the integrations to be able to tie that in with Azure and other pieces are just going to become easier and easier. And you could do it before, but now it's going to be like, oh, there's a button and it's an easy button to do it. And then I think the other thing I would say, Mark, is that as we walk into the autonomous agent space, that's going to really change the perception. It's beyond the concepts of what you can do with AI by itself. It's now AI working in conjunction with business process automation to be able to do something you could never do before. And I think the combination of these two things are really going to be a year that's just insane. And as you're aware, I mean, the innovation on the AI side and the AI model side is just going to keep going too. So when we talk again, and because we're not going to wait so long, right, Mark? So then when we talk again next time, I would anticipate there's probably going to be some innovation in the model space that you can do and stuff like that, because we already started seeing some of that. Like you can now stream audio in and you're not having to do text to speech.
Yeah.
Like that's a big deal. Right. And so I think there's going to be a lot of interesting things when we start going beyond just chatware.
Yeah.
I think chat stuff is going to get super easy to do, but then these other things are just going to really take it to a level that people really didn't think about. And I think that's the beauty of it. And this is the year that I think it's not just about OpenAI, it's about OpenAI's integrate, how Microsoft's going to take OpenAI and combine it with the Microsoft asset pool.
Yeah.
And then you're going to get something that's completely different that you couldn't do before, which I think is really awesome.
Have you seen, I suppose, in 2024, looking at the year in reverse without revealing any customer details or anything, did you see anything that was quite, you're like, that was cool, that's a cool use case, or that was a cool way to use a technology? Because you mentioned voice there, and I think voice is a massively underexplored territory in how we go forward. I just had a customer the other day say, listen, when I fill out my CRM system, I really just want to be able to open the record and say the first name is Bob, the second name is Frank, and it just types it in just with me talking and, auto-filling out that type of functionality, which we got that degree coming in the Dynamics suite of products. But it was interesting. This is an old guy, but his way of how, he would like to use AI combined with what he was doing. But was there anything that really kind of stood out, top of mind story that was highlights for you last year?
I had a couple of things that kind of top of mind. And I will say there was this thing that when I think back where I got value that I didn't expect. So it's not necessarily like the use case in this scenario. Well, I'll say this use case was fairly interesting and everyone's heard about the use case because it's the Holland America one that we talk about publicly, right? But the thing that was about that I didn't expect, we had done business value assessments and all this stuff about what we expected the return and how this thing was going to perform and everything. And we were expecting to get like a return from like over in this area, on the left. But we didn't expect this value area on the right. We didn't even know that there would be impact there. And what it came down to is that if you think about I have an API or I have something that you want to do. And in the case of this, it's like cruises. I want to find a cruise. So when we were doing this, the customer had an API that had, here are all the different cruises, right, that you might want. And so we needed to go search for a cruise that would be the right cruise for you. And what we found, and this became similar because it wouldn't matter that it was finding cruises. It could be like you wanted to search ServiceNow's knowledge base, right?
Yeah.
For knowledge articles. What we didn't expect at the time, and it makes logical sense now that this would be the case, is what we were doing is using an AI model to look at the context of the whole conversation and generate a lexical search query against a lexical search API. And what you ended up with is really improved search results coming back from an existing search service that then could be consumed by the AI with the context as well. But knowing that the search quality was going to go up and the search results were going to be better off of your API that was just a standard lexical search, I didn't expect that. I didn't think that would be something that was the case. But we saw that not only with the Holland America example, but we also were working with another company and they were trying to do something with ServiceNow knowledge articles. And we saw the same thing and we went, oh man, we didn't think about that. And so there's actually some, features and stuff that we started putting into Copilot Studio because we realized after we saw that's going to mean that a lot of people are going to want to be able to do that. And we want to make that easier to do and all of that. And so I think that was kind of like a really aha moment for me when I was looking at that. And then the second thing that was like really cool is I did a video that showed the new orchestration engine.
I was just going to ask you about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I did one where I do one with the PO, like I'm creating a PO. And what a lot of people don't know is that I'm building this thing and I get on the phone and I call up Gary Pretty, which is the lead over it. And I said, hey, I need you to tell me what are all the things that I need to show to demo this thing in the best light. And so I built this thing with no intention, right? I was just wanting to check this box, check this box, check this box. And I went through it all, Mark, and I built all this stuff with all the different pieces to do it. And then out of a fluke, I just went, wait a minute, if it has all that, if I say, create me 2 POs with this one with this and this one with that and everything, and it just did it. Like it literally figured out all the assets and did it and dynamically assembled it and did it not just once, but did it for 2 different things, summarized it all out and spit it out. And that demo and that video that you saw from that stems from me building that as a way to demonstrate it on a stage to show people this new feature. But then I'm trying to do something real world. And then it occurs to me that, wait a minute, this thing can do more than what I really thought about when I was building it, which showcases the fact that if you do these things right and you modularize it right and your model descriptions are good, it'll actually do stuff that you didn't even intend it to do because it's flexible enough to figure it out. And that's kind of a really big aha moment. We even had one of our guys that was demoing on a stage, and he was showing something, and we had negative feedback on him because he said on the stage, he went, "Oh, wow, that worked like I didn't expect." And so like those things were really impressive to me.
Yeah.
As I was going through. So those are the standout ones for me right now.
I like it. Are now in 2025, and we see this concept. And what I'd like you to do actually start with your description of what agents are. What is semi-autonomous? What's autonomous? And let's say what's fully autonomous, or really, set and forget type agent scenarios. I think orchestration plays into that mix because you're going to have these agents that have deeper expertise, but you're going to need an orchestrator to know which agent to call or which one to fire in a scenario.
Yep.
Let's start with, how do you explain the concept of agents that we're hearing about now?
Dynamics Minds is one event you don't want to miss. Microsoft product managers and industry leaders from all over the world converge in Slovenia to explore the latest in Dynamics 365, the Power Platform, and Copilot. Expect 3 days of in-person community connection, trailblazing insights, and a location sure to inspire our creativity. Early bird tickets are on sale now, and podcast listeners get 10% off by registering via the link in the show notes. Hope to see you there.
Yeah, so there was a little bit of a rebrand that happened, and Microsoft were great at marketing and rebranding things without being clear that we did it. So the word Copilot, let's start there. Copilot was being used like everywhere.
Yes.
Right. And so we started to get a problem, which was nobody understood what the word Copilot meant. And then we started using Copilot and the word agent. And then we started getting into a new one, which was going to be a function, an extension, and a plugin. And all of these words started becoming a problem because people were using them interchangeably. And I literally had two sales guys fighting in front of a customer on what Copilot did, and they didn't even realize they were both right. They were talking about different products. And so the thing that, if we start at what is a Copilot now branded by Microsoft, you're going to see that it's going to have like a big C in the front. And the reason behind that is Copilot is a product from Microsoft. It is a product that you configure. And sure, you could say it's an agent that's prepackaged and available to you, right? And so that's why you're going to see this word Copilot. Now, an agent is going to be different, and you will see an agent with a small a, not with a big A. And the reason behind that, and this is, by the way, I've had to have a long talk with marketing to get this, so just trust me. It's not like this is common nature. The word agent is meant to say it is a conversational AI implementation that uses generative AI that you're in control of, that you build, and that you are in control of the orchestration. When you go over into like Copilot for M365, you don't have full control of the orchestration engine. Now, you can throw something in and you can extend it and you can do all that, but you can't make it not do something that it's programmed to do. Whereas an agent means you are in control of it. And so if you think the word Copilot agent, big C, little a, means that's what an extension is of a Copilot product, is a Copilot agent. And so if you're saying agent, then we're just talking about something you built. Now, how you build that thing, it can be whatever. And so, yeah, and we always thought it was funny, and you'll get a kick out of this, Mark, is that we changed the name from Power Virtual Agents to Copilot Studio, but now Copilot Studio doesn't build copilots, it builds agents.
Yes.
So I had fun with marketing on that one.
Yes.
But the thing is so in Copilot Studio, what are you going to do? You're going to build agents, right? Now, can you build agents in different ways? Absolutely, you can. But fundamentally, understand that an agent that is a real intelligent agent, that is something bigger than just a model, is going to need to have an orchestration engine. And that is what Copilot Studio is. It's an out of the box, it is a SaaS-based conversational orchestration engine, right? And we saw the evolution of that to incorporate using not a traditional language model. And for those that don't know what I mean by that, it used to be that you would have to train an NLU model. You'd say, here's 6 different ways of saying this thing.
Yes.
And that way I can say this is the intent. And then you can do the same thing with entities, which if you want to understand the difference between intents and entities, an intent is if I said I want to order a large pepperoni pizza, the intent is that I want to order something. Then the entities are large pepperoni pizza. And so the being able to do that, you had to train that into a natural language understanding implementation. And traditionally, this is where large language models came along because you don't train one. Not typically, you don't train one. And matter of fact, to train a large language model from the ground up takes like 6 months to do with a massive data center worth of GPUs to be able to get it done. So when we're looking at these, you don't do that anymore. How you use these is you had the innovation that happened where I don't need to do intent routing or determining what tool to use. I can use a orchestration engine that's not powered by a traditional NLU. I can do it with a large language model. And this is what you heard us talk about, generative actions and everything. And you're going to see, like, you'll hear us refer to this as generative orchestration now, because we realize, like, actions, which is the wrapper around an API, we needed to separate that from the orchestration engine capability. And I'll explain why in just a second. So once we've done this, this is where it really gets into what you're talking about. Well, what is an agent? Okay, so now we can start to classify them. Well, and there's different agent types now. You have what I refer to as a synchronous agent. We just call it an agent, which is what you traditionally think of as like a chat GPT or a traditional bot that handles things and you talk to it and it talks back to you, right? And that's how you interface. But we saw this evolution happen, and this got unlocked because of the fact that you had to have a generative AI-based orchestrator that could understand the context of the conversation and the context of the tools that it has at its disposal. So when we were talking about that PO thing, I needed something that can understand this is the API to call to, or the Power Automate flow to go create a PO, and here's the one to go get an approval, and oh, here's one to go get information about our HR policy and all that. So what you're seeing is it's basically acting as like a router, a conversational router. And that, by the way, is what, conversational orchestration is.
Yes.
So that's when we started to see that you're going to start to see these other agent types. And I think this leads into a thing that I know many people get confused about, which is what is the difference between what you're hearing us talk about autonomous agents and why is that? Because people think about it and they go, oh, well, smart business process automation or something like that. And they go, well, wait a minute, how is that different than Power Automate? And because now we're starting to see these classifications where it's not you're talking to it and it's talking back. Now it can be that something else triggers it and then it does something. And a lot of people go, well, that's Power Automate. And so Power Automate can have something that triggers it and then you can follow a business process and everything. So here's the difference, Mark. And this is why it was so important to land a conversational orchestrator based off a large language model. Because now imagine, back up to Copilot Studio for a second. Imagine if I was going to hire someone, I'm going to write a job description.
Yep.
I take that and I say, here's what your job is. Here are the rules you should follow. Here are the tools at your disposal to be able to do your job. And this is what your job is. And when should you do your job? Well, when you receive an email, when someone puts a record in a CRM, when someone fills out a form, like whatever, right? So there's this thing that's not that someone's talking to you, but guess what? Those autonomous agents can talk to you but they don't have to, because they can go and look at it. And imagine I have 6 different Power Automate flows. I explain what they all do. I go over here and I say, oh, here's some knowledge with like information on products and information about business processes and how those things should, what those policies are and things of that nature. And then I have like all these different tools, and even a topic could be a tool.
Yeah.
So now I'm triggering those things, and it can do whatever I need it to go do based upon something going on. So one of the demos that we did, and I didn't show this one publicly. I can't remember if I made the video for this one or not. I have to go back and look. What I did, I think this is the video I'm working on right now, but the problem, Mark, is that it's getting harder to build the crazy complexity that's going to make everybody go, wow, because I know I can do it, but I have to go build it all. But what I did at that particular thing at the CIO Summit is we took and made a form that you could go ask it about what are cruise specials.
Mm-hmm.
And it would go look you up based upon your email address and figure out what you had cruised in the past, make a product recommendation, look at what the specials are, figure out what you like, go in and create a CRM and implement, record for it, update the CRM record, then make you an email and email it to the person and giving them the cruise specials. And then someone could email back to it and be like, hey, you gave me these 3 options, but I was thinking about I wanted to cruise Greece this year. Do you have any specials for that? And it could then converse with them. And all the time when it's doing this, it's updating the CRM system for people to know what was going on, and it's helping with the pipeline. Right. So the thing is that that's where you get into autonomous agents. I think everyone gets confused because they make it too simple. They think it's like just business process automation, or that there's a step within the business process automation where I want to look at the model and figure out what to do next. But it is literally like the brain of the orchestration engine being able to be triggered, and then it understand what its job is and the tools it has, so that it can just figure out what's the right thing to go do to be able to complete it. And right now, I would say we're in the infancies of what it can do. So you might hit some limitations and stuff because it was only in preview, but the intent is that it works like that. And a lot of people then freak out when I talk about this, Mark. They go, oh my God, it's going to replace me for my job. And it's like, no, it's going to take the thing that you have to do over and over and over again and make you not have to do that, so you can work on the things that you need to provide a higher quality. And so I really think this is the thing that's really going to be amazing in 2025.
If we look at that example, though, that you've just given, and we say it's a job description, right? Mm-hmm. If you look at a job description for a role, it'll fit on one side of a sheet of paper, maybe. Then you start doing the job and you realize it's really 300 sheets of paper, because we don't tell you that you're going to have to be in these meetings and you're going to have to, reply to an aggregated email. We don't put all those nuances of the job in the job description, but you start to pick it up. And when I think of agents, and the element that I would love to see is the concept of memory, because with memory, then we can learn. And in that example of the cruise scenario, and like I don't see memory being something that can inherently sit in an LLM, because, as you said, an LLM takes 6 months to train and it's ready to go. So somewhere outside of that, we need some concept of being able to remember past activity, etc., and also to learn from error. Right?
Right.
How does a rocket get to the moon? It makes lots of errors all the way that it self-corrects on to get there. Do you think that's something that's going to sit in the camp of Copilot Studio particularly, or is that going to be something that's going to be more on the Foundry side of the game as we move forward, and that ability to store more long-term memory?
So a combination. It's going to be like a combination. So think of it that you already have memory. So Copilot Studio already has memory in 2 places, but there's a third place that's coming, right? Mm-hmm. So the first place is there has always been something that, if you go all the way back into bot framework, we used to refer to this as the conversation state. Mm-hmm. So the conversation state and your ability to write something that you're talking about into memory is ability to do that. And that's where variables come along, right? So if you think about it, this goes back to okay, everybody's like, oh, I'm going to go and use AI Studio, or I'm going to go use OpenAI's implementation, and everything's just in this one model. Well, that's where you don't have a conversation orchestration engine or a dialogue management system in a
Yeah.
sense, right? And that means you don't have a conversation state. So you can't store something that I don't want to take into consideration in the next turn, but later I want to use it, right? And so that's something that Copilot Studio has today. And that's why our variables come in. And there's been a ton of work on variables that nobody even paid attention to, like being able to store a record in a variable and be able to update a record within a variable so that you can take a whole JSON payload and drop it into a variable, and then just whenever you wanted to use it, you could just concatenate that into the query set and then provide that into the large language model for context. And so then the second part is going to be in the prompt. So the prompt itself is going to give you the ability to pass this in. And everyone kind of understands that one. It probably, that's if they're following this conversation to this level.
Yeah.
And then we've got the new part, right? Which is when OpenAI started introducing the concept of memory itself and having a way to provide memory to the model that is more beyond the prompt. And that is something that you'll see Copilot Studio embrace. Now, when you talk about Foundry and you start talking about this is just, you're going to build something to do this, like to pass it in and to be able to deal with it. And so that's kind of the value of the whole Copilot Studio thing, is that it's not that it's low code type of thing. I think a lot of people get over the moon about low code. It's the fact that it is a SaaS platform so that you don't have to go build all this stuff. So
Yes.
whether you really want low code or pro code or whatever you want to do, that's really not a separation in Copilot Studio so much anymore. Can you use Copilot Studio and do low code? Absolutely. Can you do pro code? Absolutely. So the question really gets down to, do you want a SaaS or do you want to build it yourself?
Yeah.
And then some of that's going to be, I want to build this one little piece by myself. And that's going to be where you're going to see like Copilot SDK and all of that. So you're going to see an evolution of the bot framework SDK happening, which is going to make it where it can handle memory and it can do all of those things. And you're going to see the same thing in Foundation and all that. And so all these things interwork. It's just what level of control and how much depth do you want. Copilot Studio, it's not low code, pro code. It's SaaS or no SaaS. Do you want SaaS or do you want PaaS? That's really better the way to think about it. And I could have my SaaS call for this particular thing. I need to be in more control. So I'm going to build a service in PaaS that I'm going to call from my SaaS. And that's actually the most common configuration that we see. If you just build everything in PaaS, then your ROI is going to suck pretty bad. And your maintenance is going to be very high. So that's why I think it's a combination of these things. And I think you'll see this get a little clearer to people, because at Microsoft, we're learning, just like you guys are learning, right? And you find the mistakes. Like, we've already made a few mistakes. Like, look at M365 Copilot. Originally, there was like this little drop-down box that you had where you're going to build all these plugins, and that thing's being deprecated. It's coming out, right? And now you're seeing a Copilot agent replace it. And it's because we realized people wanted to be able to mention a Copilot agent so that they could direct it to what they wanted to talk to. And I also think you'll probably see in this space that'll help you on this, Mark, as well, when it comes to memory, is I think we might, with the combination of memory, the combination of a platform that has a conversation state that can be, because we're in a SaaS, we can standardize the conversation state to make it look standardized so that you don't have to worry. I can build things that can use it because it's standard the way that it works. Where if I let you have an SDK, I can't make everybody follow the same standard for the way we're going to store variables. So now with those things happening and memory coming in and everything, I think this might actually open the door for something that I think you're kind of alluding to, which is, imagine an agent that can talk to another agent or understand what another agent can do, and being able to orchestrate between agents.
Yeah.
in a way that doesn't make the user really irritated or cause a massive nightmare. So I think there's a possibility that that might be viable with this whole memory thing coming out. So
I like it.
long-winded answer, but there you go.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. We're at our final question. We've run out of time. I have the UI AI Copilot is the UI for AI. And I see it as a dimension probably beyond what Microsoft are currently talking about it, right? Which is it's a great catchphrase, whoever the marketer, that came up with it, fantastic. What I've noticed in the enterprise customers that are implementing Copilot, or actually, let's back up. Any enterprise customer has a lot of software. Let's say 200 to 300 different applications that do something in that organization, from the big vendors like SAP, Pega, ServiceNow, these type of things, Microsoft, of course. And people have fatigue inside organizations around application switching. I need to do something around inventory, so I'm going to jump into my SAP system. I'm going to do something around my holiday leave, so I'm going to jump into HCM system, blah, 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 right? And each of these product manufacturers have now come up with their AI interface to their software. And what I see happening is now people are going, okay, which AI do I use? And how does that AI different, and how I prompt that one to how I prompt that one? And so when Microsoft came out with this UI for AI, I'm just like, awesome. We don't care where the data sits in your organization that we're going to call as part of this AI process. If I have a single interface, I can build out my skill at working with Copilot, the UI for AI. And like you're saying, at the agents in, as long as I've, started to develop, hey, there's an agent that can do this and I can add them in, but I don't have to keep going, am I in the right AI interface to do what I need to do? And I see the UI for AI as a compelling story by lighting up the agent experience that you can do with Copilot Studio, by bringing in the ServiceNow data, but I don't need to use the ServiceNow AI. I don't need to use the SAP AI if I basically can consume it through APIs. And this is where orchestration comes back into play, because when I'm talking about purchase orders or order numbers, and we're talking about, hey, a connection to SAP here, I'm going to go and retrieve from that as part of what I do.
So I think it's close, but I think where this is a guess, right? So just to be clear, this is how I'm thinking. This is based upon what I'm seeing. I think how we get there. It's not that I need to do it. Like, let's say ServiceNow's got this really cool AI that they come out with that does a really great job over ServiceNow data, because they know their data structure, they know how to search it, they know how to query it, and so they can probably write a really compelling AI for their self. But what they can't do is also bring in Salesforce. No, Salesforce is the expert AI over there, right? And so the problem we ran into is, I've said this many times, I said, the answer isn't one AI. It's not to build Iron Man's AI.
Yeah.
Why can't I remember Tony Stark's AI? So forgive me about my inabilities to be geeky here, but the idea is you're not going to have that, because humans speak with context that's not spoken. So, like, if I say, what is the finance rate? If I'm talking to an HR person, I mean something different than if I'm talking to someone in the finance department for the organization, right? One's corporate tax rate and the other is personal tax rate. And if I don't know the context, then it doesn't work. This is why Copilot agents had to be incorporated with where you can do the app and talk to a Copilot agent, so that you can say, I'm asking this to the HR thing. I'm asking this to that. So that's how we're handling the unspoken context, right? But if you think about it, these sub AIs, there's no reason that an AI can't ask another AI a question and then use that as how to respond. So imagine if an AI under its function was to, and it goes back to orchestration again. Imagine that we have an AI that is a master orchestration engine that can also have good connections to call the API to another AI to ask it a question. Okay, not to access the data, but to just ask it a question.
I love it. I love it.
Now I get a response from the AI, really understands its data and its stuff, and it comes back with it. And imagine then I ask the question, and in order for me to answer that question, I actually have to go to 3 systems, 3 different other AIs to be able, that it has to go there to go figure it out. So what I think where we are right now is we're in the thousands of AIs, right? But the reality is we don't need one, because the human context, unspoken context problem. But what we might need is a few. That's the HR one, that's the corporate one, or whatever. So imagine now that Copilot Studio starts to slot itself into a place where it is the conversational orchestrator for Microsoft that is configurable. And think about what I said about the explanation of all the different tools, and the AI has just become yet another tool.
Yeah.
And now you can say, I could actually create this. The reason I think it's going to work this way, Mark, is I think this is what I told you at the very beginning. If we do a callback to the beginning, the thing that makes me think this is the thing that was the unexpected value prop, which was even a lexical search got better when I was able to have an AI build the query with the context.
Yeah.
So imagine now how good an AI could build a question that it needs to ask another AI to get what it needs from the response. And so I think if you think about it, that's where Copilot Studio is going to become like the superpower, because it will be the AI of AIs.
Yeah.
It will be the thing that you explain how to go get all these things and how they all come together. And you're not going to program that in C#. You're going to program that in English or Dutch or whatever your spoken language is. This is why a lot of people need to be thinking about prompt engineering. They need to be thinking about that new skill set, which is programming in natural language, being like a lawyer. How do I write an explanation that's very crisp and take out all the loopholes so that AI behaves how I want it to behave? Because in that orchestration world, it's going to be super important. So this is the part that's actually going to become very interesting, and it needs to be a SaaS, because you need a runtime engine that's going to execute consistently.
Yeah.
And so this is Copilot Studio.
I like it. Dewain, this has been awesome. I'm excited about this year. It's going to be an epic year.
Well, Mark, I think everybody's going to think we pre-planned that question. And I just want to go on the record and say, guys, actually not. This is actually just a really good riff with you, because it's interesting how all this starts just coming together, you know?
Yeah, I love it. Thank you, sir. I hope to see you in probably March, MVP Summit. If you're around, I'll see you there.
I will be there, and I am looking forward to getting to see all my wonderful MVPs like yourself. And, you know, if there's anybody that's wanting to kind of follow me, feel free to follow me on LinkedIn, or I think on Twitter, I'm like Dewain76, and I spelled Dewain really weird. So look at the show notes.
Yeah.
And if all else fails, you can go to copilotstudiodude.com. And that's where you'll find the YouTube channel that we've talked about. And so there's a lot of stuff I'm going to be putting on that. I'm going to kind of double down on that this year, Mark. So definitely interested in seeing stuff. And you need to give me feedback, by the way. You and all your community need to give me
YouTube
feedback
stuff
on
is amazing,
what you think.
Right? It's the Copilot source to go to and to, as your videos drop it. It's epic. Thank you, sir.
Well, I appreciate it. You are too kind, sir. You are too kind. Yeah, well, like I said, exciting 2025, and we can't make it this long again between the next time I talk to you. And there you go.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. Thank you, sir. Bye-bye. Hey, thanks for listening. I'm your host, Mark Smith, otherwise known as the NZ365 guy. Is there a guest you would like to see on the show from Microsoft? Please message me on LinkedIn, and I'll see what I can do. Final question for you. How will you create with Copilot today? Ka kite.
Are you ready to accelerate your career in the Microsoft ecosystem? The 90-Day Mentoring Challenge, created by Mark Smith, is your opportunity to create a personalized pathway to success. Join over 1,200 alumni from more than 70 countries who have achieved remarkable results, from promotions to new job opportunities Take it from Nathan, who said, since completing the 90-day mentoring challenge, I've become an MVP in business applications and doubled my income. Or from Parves, who shares, I've never felt as inspired or energized about my career as I do now. Sign up at arcor.nz365guide.com. You can find the link in the show notes. And if you use the code podcast, you'll get 10% off.